Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football early Friday afternoon. The Miami Hurricanes commitment sweatshirt comes back on as arguably the biggest transfer portal commitment we've seen all cycle. Goes down Friday afternoon as former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck committing to the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, we hopped on yesterday afternoon when Carson Beck hit the transfer portal and said, look, Miami makes so much sense. And then you started seeing the reports that Miami was kind of the leader in the clubhouse. They wasted no time wrapping this commitment or recruitment up. And I think secondly, you have to give a massive golf clap to Mario Cristobal and this Miami Hurricanes program in terms of how they've gone about their business in the transfer portal. Look, it became kind of clear after Emory Williams in the second half against Iowa State in that bowl game. Miami probably wanted to add a quarterback. Now, the problem was there just weren't that many good quarterbacks that hit the transfer portal this cycle. There wasn't a Cam Ward. There wasn't a Dylan Gary, but really the only quarterback that I thought was on that level was John Mateer. And we saw Miami try to get in on that one, but he ends up going to Oklahoma. Mario Cristobal didn't panic. He kind of was just patient. And while a lot of other programs that wanted quarterbacks were settling for lesser quarterbacks, Mario Cristobal, cards close to the vest, being really, really patient, waits for a name to pop like Carson Beck. And when that name popped yesterday, I think a lot of Miami Hurricanes, those antennas popped up and said, this one makes a lot of sense. Now, this is a difference-making quarterback in my point. In fact, I'm on record, and this wasn't even a great take, but I'm on record early August saying if you asked me to pick a quarterback to go win a national championship with in the 2024 year, my answer was Carson Beck. Now, that answer probably should have been Cam Ward, but that kind of tells you how I feel about Carson Beck and what he can do at the quarterback spot. And I think, secondly, this is a dynamite fit at the quarterback position. One, really good fit in the Shannon Dawson offense, really good processor Carson Beck is. But I think, secondly, look, when you surround Carson Beck with some weapons on the outside and a run game, that's when Carson Beck does his best work. When you take a look at Carson Beck off play action, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. What do we know about Miami in the 2025 season? They are going to run the football extremely effectively. And so he's coming into an offense that is a good offensive line, that's going to keep him clean, that's going to run the football well. That this is a very good quarterback and a very good fit. And all of a sudden, you look at Miami's offseason and said, yeah, it was a disappointing 2024 year. It felt like this team underperformed. They're gearing up to make another very, very good run in 2025. They go and get their quarterback of the 2025 year. They make some massive additions in the transfer portal to the secondary, which was a massive problem for Miami in the 2024 season. If you hire a great defensive coordinator, this is a team that is primed to do some really, really special things in the 2025 year. And one thing that stands out to me right off the bat is, look, the quarterback play in college football over the last year just hasn't been great. And so you look at the quarterbacks that you trust the most going into 2025, how many names are you taking over Carson Beck? And so now Miami has another, what I think is a very, very good quarterback, borderline elite quarterback going into 2025, which is a really good fit in the offense. And then we're getting the defense right. This team can be extremely dangerous in 2025. Now, I want to get a little bit more into Carson Beck, talk about what he brings to the Miami Hurricanes before we get into it, as always. To the Miami Hurricane fans, a lot of which have been rocking with the boys for a very long time. Can't thank you guys enough. It's going to be another very, very fun spring practice session and fall camp. The amount of support y'all show the boys means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this one. Now, let's get into what Carson Beck is elite at. I think one of the best processors in all of college football. I mean, you're not going to find many quarterbacks that are in more command of the offense than Carson Beck. Now, because he's so good at that, I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for how talented he is as a thrower of the football too. Now, I don't know if the arm talent is quite Cam Ward, and Cam Ward was really, really special, but Carson Beck can make any throw on the football field. You make no mistake about that. Now, you go back to the 2023 season. I mean, he was arguably one of the best quarterbacks in college football, a 72% completion percentage for 3,900 yards, 24 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Now, the numbers dipped a little bit in the 2024 year for a couple of different reasons. One, it's fair to say maybe Carson Beck did not play as well as he did in 2023, but he certainly was not a bad quarterback. I think the big problem was Georgia struggled to run the football. And they had, I think Georgia fans would agree with this, one of the worst pass catcher rooms that you saw in the SEC. I mean, I believe they led the country in drops, certainly led the SEC. It just wasn't good enough around Carson Beck. And Carson Beck's a guy that if you can put a lot of talent around him, which I think Miami can, Carson Beck can have a lot of success. One of the storylines that I'm kind of looking at here is, what does this mean for Miami recruiting wide receivers out of the transfer portal? Like, Miami made a move for a guy like Zachariah Branch, made a move for a guy like Eric Singleton, but I think a lot of those wide receivers were a little hesitant to commit to Miami because you weren't really sure what the quarterback play was going to look like. Look, there's going to be more good wide receivers that hit the transfer portal over the next couple of weeks and then in the spring transfer portal window. This allows Miami to start really selling to these wide receivers. Look, you can come to the Miami Hurricanes and you're going to have a really good quarterback. You're going to be in a really good Shannon Dawson offense. This all of a sudden, to me, becomes a destination spot for elite wide receiver talent. And I think I would not be surprised, to say the least, that if Miami makes one more massive addition in the pass catcher room. And that's not to say, like, I don't like the pass catchers that Miami has right now. CJ Daniels, JoJo Trader, Nikar, Ray. The talent's there. But you maybe want one more proven commodity, a guy that's done it at a high level. Landing Carson Beck allows you to attract some difference makers at the wide receiver position that maybe were a little tentative about committing to Miami in the first place with no quarterback. You start looking at why the fit is so good. And this is probably what we'll close it on. And we'll obviously be talking a lot about this over the next couple of weeks. Number one, Carson Beck, when he's kept clean, 70% completion percentage for over 3,000 yards, a 91.5 PFF grade in 2024. You go back to 2023, the completion percentage was 76%. If you give Carson Beck a clean pocket, he is going to cut up defenses. What's one thing we know about Miami going into 2025? This offensive line is going to be really good. And so you're putting Carson Beck behind an offensive line that will keep him protected and keep him clean in the 2025 year. Great fit. Secondly, take a look at Carson Beck off of play action. Even in 2024, when this team was not as good around him, off of play action, 69% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception. You go back to 2023, a 73% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. One of the things about Miami is they're going to be a little bit more balanced in 2025. Mark Fletcher, Jordan Lyle behind a good offensive line. They're going to look to run the football. Well, if you run the football well, that's how you get the play action game going. Yeah, Carson Beck's a lead off of play action. So not only do I think you're getting one of the best quarterbacks in the country going into 2025, but I think just as importantly, this is a really good fit in the offense. Like, I don't know if you could have grabbed a better quarterback that fits this Miami Hurricanes offense better in what Shannon Dawson wants to do. I mean, in pure Shannon Dawson offense fit, I'd probably take Carson Beck over John Mateer in terms of the fit. This is a dynamite commitment that completely changes the perspective we have around Miami going into 2025. If you can address the problems on the defensive side of the football, which Miami is clearly doing with a new defensive coordinator and in the secondary, the sky's the limit for this Miami team in 2025. And that's what we brought Mario Cristobal in to do. Project number one for Miami was build rosters from a talent standpoint that can compete every single year for a national championship. There's no doubt in my mind, 2024, yeah, you had some holes, but that was a roster that could be dangerous in the playoffs if they got it. You look at the 2025 roster and say, that's going to be, to me, probably the favorite to win the ACC right now and get into the college football playoffs and be dangerous. And I think with the cherry on top is you're getting a quarterback in Carson Beck who's been in those kind of games, right? He's won 2 SEC champion, or he's been in 2 SEC championships, just came off an SEC championship win, even though he got hurt. He's been in these moments too, which I think matters. Massive get. We'll continue to talk about it over the next couple of weeks. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.